Gender ideology is causing irreparable harm across society. How did we get to where we are now? What is behind push to transition kids? How does social media play a role? How can we push back and save children? My book answers all these questions and more. Please pre-order to help me in the battle against gender ideology. Now, if you are terminally on Twitter like I am, you may or may not have an idea of who could have possibly tweeted this. Maybe a Shapiro, maybe a Matt Walsh, hell, maybe even Crowder in between him telling his very pregnant wife she isn't doing enough labor. What if I told you that this isn't any of the usual suspects this time, and in fact, is actually none other than Jimin from BTS. Sorry, Dollar Store Jimin from BTS. Oli London, the man, the myth, the legend who spent money to make himself look like a botched blow-up doll more than a K-pop idol, made this tweet. Because I guess he realized that if pissing K-pop stans off, as well as being so weird that K-pop stans won't even tolerate you, will not pay your bills, being a grifter absolutely will. Now, for those of you who don't know who Oli London is, congratulations! Do you really want to keep watching this video? Because I kind of do have to talk about him and get into like the timeline of all the shit leading up to this insane grift he's on. Oli London gained internet notoriety when Truly posted a Hooked on the Look video regarding him trying to look, you guessed it.
I want my entire look to look like Jimin. He's honestly my K-pop idol. Oh, this is actually the guy, just so you can see the face shape. I just kind of want to look like him.
More Korean, and specifically using Jimin from BTS as inspo because they were very much infatuated with him to like a totally normal amount.
I actually look Korean now.
Oh yeah,
I actually look Korean.
Say like that.
And you put the Korean injection in me, I feel Korean, wow.
And overall, it's just kind of weird to see the lengths that this man's willing to go to try to look Korean.
I've also had a blepharoplasty, which basically was work on my eyelids for rhinoplasties. Angle reduction, which is basically a jawline surgery. I also have a silicone chin implant here.
Like, I get it. You are obsessed with Jimin and you are obsessed with wanting to look beautiful, but have you ever considered going to therapy? A year or so after this, Truly realized that Oli's a little cash cow for them due to his unique aura, or as I like to call it, massive creep factor. So they brought him back on a Hooked on the Look for another update as to what shenanigans you get into now to look Korean and, you know, like Jimin. And yeah, we've got some totally normal adult behavior going on in this video.
So now that I'm back in Korea, I'm really Jimin! Oh my god! Jimin, I love you! I love you so much. I want Jimin flavor. Do they have Jimin flavor?
Y'all remember that old Filthy Frank video about weeaboos? We need that, but with like Koreaboos and specifically on Oli London. Because something just ain't right with that boy. The video goes into how Oli's getting even more surgeries done to look Korean and like Jimin, as well as what his friends think of his new look. None of them, mind you, being the friends from the previous video, because understandably, you can only handle so much crazy. And you know, Oli doesn't have the best track record with friends, but we'll get into that in a second. But I bring this video up for one reason and one reason only, and that's because it has the absolute perfect quote in it. Because, well,
I'm not actually changing my race.
Oh, really?
And my pronouns are they, them, Korean, Jimin. I do look Korean now. I do feel Korean. I don't identify as British, so please just don't refer to me, any media or anyone online, as British, because I identify as Korean. That's just my culture. That's my home country.
How the turntables fucking turn, am I right? So yes, later on, Oli would just stumble off the deep end and decide that he is now transracial. You know, that thing that totally doesn't exist and has actually been made fun of before?
Are you African American?
I don't understand the question.
Let's just laugh at him now.
That's him, that's what he is now. Which granted, came off about as well as it could, considering the fact he then later decided to get a penis reduction surgery to become, and I quote, 100% Korean. Which, first of all, y'all are just making shit up now. What the fuck is that? And secondly, the dude really listened to the Your Favorite Martian Stereotype song and just completely and utterly took that shit to heart.
Then your brain is small like a Korean penis.
Now, because if Oli doesn't get attention, I am sure he will shrivel up and die, he has been more active than ever on TikTok and consistently posts on there. And he even got to live his dream and become a little K-pop star himself and make some music videos, which,
Snap, snap, Miss Korean dream. They all wanna crush me on the K-pop scene.
What you gonna do? What you gonna do? Hey you, what you gonna do? Scream and shout, there's no doubt. Queer boo is coming for you. What you gonna do? What you gonna do?
They're bad. We don't really need to go into any more detail than that. They're just bad. I'm doing you a favor by only playing those short clips, okay? If you listen to me about anything in this, take my word, they're bad. Now, this next part is kind of a key part in the discussion on Oli London that we are going to be having later. Now, I have seen a ton of people online claim that Oli London has never detransitioned and all that, and arguably he did, just not to the extent you're thinking of, and it's in general rather questionable. Given Oli's very clearly detailed track record of trying to make himself look like other K-pop idols, he finally decided to take inspo from Rosé and Blackpink to transition into being a woman, which, no joke, lasted from May of 2022 to October of 2022. Dude spent 6 months after getting all those surgeries to become a woman and just simply said, mayhaps not. Which now brings us to the end of the timeline and to present day, where Oli London is just a genuinely insane detransition grifter on Twitter. Detransition is in massive quotes, and there is a reason for that. Detransitioning is a very sensitive and complex topic, and if anyone is by any means curious, there's a very interesting article on Reuters titled "Why Detransitioners Are Crucial to the Science of Gender Care," which will be linked below with the rest of my sources per usual. It's a really informative read that really backs that detransitioning is a topic that shouldn't be taken lightly, should be discussed openly, but also not used for personal gain. Which, Oli, my sweet delusional boy, let's be real for a second. And by real, I mean pretty fucking blunt, probably gonna make some people upset, but it probably has to be said and I'm more than likely right. From everywhere that I read online, the most that Oli basically did to transition was get facial surgery, fillers, and Botox because, duh. Surgery is his shtick. He has to keep that consistent, like he consistently insists that he is absolutely Korean. Oli has even been quoted in an interview saying that he thanks God for not going on any feminizing hormones or having any other surgeries. Oli, the reason that you didn't go on any hormones or have any other surgeries is because of the fact that that would have more an impact on you, despite facial surgeries, which, let's be honest, you were getting on the regular anyways. The only difference is that these surgeries you could tie into transitioning, which is just another way for you to try to get some attention and clout. And while I know that that sounds bad, trust me, there's a reason for me saying that this is bullshit that is beyond the fact that this just got him attention and press. Oli, you have an insanely public timeline of all of your surgery choices and all of your appearance choices. You basically changed your face and appearance to match whatever K-pop idol was gaining traction at the time. Trust me, I unfortunately remember when you decided to try to be Dollar General Felix from Stray Kids. Now, why would you even do this consistently? Because shocker, every choice you've made regarding your appearance and what you do and who you specifically try to look like, which oddly enough has been members from K-pop groups that were rising in popularity, has been for clout. Don't believe me? Think I'm being a little too harsh here? Well, no worries, because the blonde from the second Hooked on the Look video decided to air their dirty laundry between them and Oli. And basically, it is what anybody with 2 eyes and a brain cell floating around like one of those DVD loading screens could pick up on easily.
Oli has been using BTS and especially BTS Jimin for clout, for PR stunts, and to benefit his name. So Oli could get on TV and get press and get a lot of exposure from it. Basically, if you have been following Oli for 2 years, you have been living a lie. Oli has been using Jimin since day one. Oli doesn't care about BTS. Let me clarify something here. Last year, we were both in Seoul together. I left in the middle of June, and then like a week before BTS was playing in Seoul, so I was mad because I had to go back to work. And basically, Oli was in Seoul when BTS played in Seoul, and he didn't even go to see them. So that's how much he couldn't care less about BTS. He's just caring about how much trendy and how much view and money he can make using K-pop and using BTS. Oli's surgery were free. Oli has never spent $150,000 for his surgery because he cannot afford it. Oli doesn't come from a rich family. His family is broke because they live outside London. Oli himself is broke. He lives in a very nasty place in London. Like I think he told me it was a 2-bed, 2-bath with 6 other people that split the rent. So Oli is far away from being rich. Oli is actually broke. But Oli got all his surgery for free. When we were in Korea, he got about $50,000 value of surgery for free. So yes, he will use and abuse Jimin to get sponsorized surgery for free. Absolutely. Oli London cannot sing. Oli London cannot dance. Oli London is a loser and he has like no personality and he's a follower like a sheep, right? So because he has no personality, he needs to use other people like K-pop and like K-pop star and stuff like that. And he needs to use the movement like Black Lives Matter, like bullying, like hating Trump in order to get trendy because he has nothing to offer. If you didn't realize that by now, something is wrong with you.
And it gets worse too, because it didn't stop at just appearances. It also coincided with what he decided to publicly support as well.
And then also because I've been a lot on Twitter, there's been so many people talking about me on Twitter because I'm supporting the Black Lives Matter and protests and stuff. So I had 200,000 views on the video. So because of that as well, I'm getting a lot of requests. So it's just, I'm just staying relevant.
And if you'd like another example, there's also the more recent conflicting reasoning for why he shaved his head. In his videos on TikTok, it was all about supporting Iranian women during the protests due to the death of Mahsa Amini, later bringing up the switch in pronouns, and auctioning the hair to raise money to donate. On Twitter, Oli just advertised it as cutting his hair off to sell and donate the proceeds to charity, no mentioning of his detransition. And then, in interviews, it was specifically to transition back into being a man and that you're still auctioning the hair to raise money to donate. Mind you, I have yet to find a post anywhere discussing if the hair was actually auctioned off and if the money was donated, but that could simply be an error on my end. So take that as you will. So overall, it just sounds like you attached yourself shaving your hair to this protest because you never once discussed it again, and then on top of it, you added detransitioning into it, which honestly, at this point, whatever gets you more attention, am I right? But back to the main point. One of Oli London's friends came forward and basically told everyone what we could have easily figured out with a quick peruse of his TikTok. It's all been for attention. It's always been for attention. So do yourself a favor and ask yourself why he, again, after 6 months of transitioning through his normal procedures, not diverging from the ones he would typically be getting, and after being outed for using movements such as Black Lives Matter for press, as well as the mixed messaging regarding him cutting off his hair and attaching that to the protests in Iran, decided to hop, skip, and jump onto the detransition grift, despite the fact that he, if we're being completely honest, didn't get any surgeries that were out of the ordinary for himself. Because all together now, there's more grifting. So to conclude the timeline, as well as put a kibosh on one of the biggest forms of misinformation I've seen regarding Oli London, did Oli London transition? In a way, he actually did. But his reasoning for transitioning has been highly questionable based on everything that we've just discussed. And while everybody transitions for their own reasons, most people transitioning don't have a timeline of trying to look like every single popular K-pop idol out there. Unfortunately, Oli London's little detransition grift has become a little bit more than just that. Because he needs all of the attention, he has now basically became, arguably, the weirdest poster boy for right-wing grifting. Seriously, look me in the eyes and tell me you saw that coming. You can't, because nobody did. Seriously though, the people that are like fully praising him now are the same people who absolutely gave him shit back in the old days for the whole Korean pronouns and shit. I, on the other hand, have at least been consistent and have found him to be a little clout goblin from the get-go, so I'm allowed to talk shit as well as pray for an asteroid to hit. No shit, Oli London's little detransition grift has led him to either spreading misinformation for attention, at best, or spreading malicious, downright lies for financial gain at worst. And given that it's Oli London, I would not be surprised if it was the latter. And lucky for Oli London, the people that he is just straight up spoon-feeding bullshit to are more than happy to digest his either complete lies or half-truths because they just want a simple gotcha point, because that's what Twitter's all about nowadays. So to finish up this little discussion on Dollar Store Jimin, I figured that we could really quickly talk about some of his tweets and some of the interesting responses to those tweets. Because I'm gonna be honest, in order to believe any of the bullshit that he's saying, your family tree has got to be a wreath. For example, and with the most obvious one, we have this little nightmare. Dear drag community, why do you believe this is appropriate for little children? Sincerely, everyone. Yeah, you know that damn drag community and their poles, and they're swinging on the pole. Do I even really need to spell this out for anyone? What is being shown in this video is not drag, it is just a female pole dancer in Poland, of all places. And you don't need me to tell you that, because who the fuck am I, right? If you won't take my word for it, Twitter basically gave a little more context thing that explained the exact same thing I just said, and gave a link to an article about it. And yet, people have found a way to somehow believe him still. I'm more angry with the parents than this man in a dress. What he is doing in front of little kids is perverted, but the parents are actively putting their children in harm's way. Shocking. It's fucking pole dancing. These...
Fottuta stronza.
Fucking bitch.
Are taking their innocent children to a pole dancing event. America is a fucked place, full of pussy asses, too afraid to stand up for what is right and fear criticism from the fuckheads that allow this to happen. Pussies. Is it playing with its penis? Willful ignorance is a hell of a drug, that's all I'm gonna say. However, some people weren't as brain dead as those individuals. They were just probably dropped on their head as a child instead of just being fully brain dead. Women or not, this is still wrong and inappropriate. Parents, do better. The fact that it's not a drag is irrelevant. This kind of performance is still inappropriate for children. Now, to level with you all on this, I don't necessarily disagree with that point. Pole dancing is pretty, it's super fucking difficult, seriously. Good on them for doing that because it could not be me. But I wouldn't necessarily bring a kid to an event that featured pole dancing, but that's just me. The issue on the table, however, is not that. The fact that both of these people just skirt across is that it actually does matter that it's a woman, because Oli claimed that this was drag, and it is clearly not. Which, if your two brain cells haven't fired off yet. This means that Oli London was deliberately trying to stoke some animosity between people and drag queens in the drag community by framing this event you admittedly consider to be wrong regardless, as a drag event when it's not. So it actually really does matter that this wasn't a drag event, because that's what Dollar Store Jimin was trying to claim that it was. And spreading this kind of misinformation is bad, and more than anything, the fact that it wasn't deleted after it got corrected tells me all I need to know about this being a little grift. Unfortunately, this is not the first or the last time that Oli London has tried to bullshit like this. Oli London has not once, but twice showed videos of age play and just adults acting like babies in general, and claimed that this was now the new addition to the LGBT community. Which, first of all, the whole "it's just men" thing is very clearly wrong, because I may or may not have a video talking about this subject in which I pissed off a lot of women in the comments. And secondly, the videos that Oli is showing are more than likely fetish or just kink content in general, and as much as you may believe otherwise, the LGBT community, a community that talks about gender and sexuality, isn't inherently associated with kink. Because if you couldn't gather from the video of the man and woman doing this shit together,
the straights are into it too. Which
also is absolutely hilarious to me, because this man really sat down and watched a man and a woman do this shit and thought to himself, ah, yes, the game. The severe amount of brain damage that this man has is absolutely stunning, and this man needs to be studied. I need him behind a glass wall to ogle at in awe and horror. Now, along the lines of misinformation, Oli London was featured on the H3H3 podcast for a little debate, and, you know, according to his tweets, I don't think the debate went all that well in his favor. After the extremely rude and unprofessional interview I had earlier with Podcasters H3 Podcast, where they tried to twist my words, they literally said afterwards, "Host, my hope in this situation that we could at least damage his reputation. Producer, it just depends how it's selectively edited. Haha, so unprofessional. People can disagree on views, but to do this and interrupt me constantly throughout the entire interview, despite the fact I remain incredibly polite while trying to twist my words and then admitting to doing it on purpose to try to damage my reputation by selectively editing, is really below the belt." Which, of course, his supporters immediately agreed with. I think we are all wise to editing now. If someone appears to say something that you cannot imagine they would say, then it is probably edited or taken out of context. Now that's fine, dandy, and great and all. However, it is hilarious and also horrifically sad that they are agreeing with him saying this after seeing the video he attached to the tweet, which, well, let me just show you.
I hope that, my hope in this was that we can at least damage his reputation.
Maybe.
You think
it just depends on how it's selectively edited, you know?
Right.
I think we are all wise to editing now. Are you really, Miss Joe? Obviously, you're not considering the fact that Oli's video is very clearly edited, and I promise you it absolutely was not for time's sake. And if you don't believe me, here's the full bit from the H3H3 podcast to prove that.
I hope that, my hope in this was that we can at least damage his reputation with his new friends.
I kind of feel like it might go the other way. You might have just alley-ooped him a little bit with his friends, I feel like. I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, he has the same points that he repeats time after time. I feel like now he has some other shit to talk about.
Yeah, maybe.
You think
It just depends on how it's selectively edited, you know?
Right.
I literally cannot imagine being this bold and stupid to lie and say that an interview you had is going to be edited while it's like up and full on YouTube, and then to just try to prove your point editing it yourself. Now, because Oli London is part of that good old grift, he has done what everybody and their mother on that sphere has decided to do and talk about Dylan Mulvaney, who, fun fact, is a person I didn't know existed until the Bud Light controversy. Because personally, she makes content I don't care to watch, it doesn't get recommended to me, I don't see it. So short little breakdown for those of you like me. Dylan is trans and she has a platform on TikTok, and therefore she gets sponsorships on TikTok, which of course, Oli London had to talk about. I'm a girl who gets facial hair. Dylan Mulvaney, brand ambassador for EOS. Yes, for once we have a tweet which is just a simple quote. I know, I'm amazed too. However, Oli's supporters decided to do the work for him and fill in the blanks. And I do have to admit, I thoroughly enjoy watching people make themselves look stupid. Let's not be silly. Women get the odd hair on their faces. Men get facial hair. It's extremely funny, but also extremely sad to know how little women know about, themselves and their own bodies. But it's also just funny because it proves how misinformed they are, which is also really sad. So because Oli and Little Miss Joe over here, the ever loyal Oli supporter that she is, are insisting that women cannot grow facial hair, I need to talk to you guys about PCOS. PCOS, which stands for polycystic ovary syndrome, is a hormonal disorder that women can get, which, fun fact, when looking up the side effects, can cause women to have excess facial hair growth because science deems facial hair to be any hair on the chin, cheeks, and upper lip, or hair loss and thinning hair in rarer cases. There is also just genetics like that upper lip hair that you may have, as well as that weird little chin hair that pops up on my chin every now and then. That can be normal for a person because genes. So, remind me again about how women don't grow facial hair. Full offense intended, but I do find it insanely hilarious how all these people want to speak on behalf of women while also knowing jack shit about women. Because according to Miss Joe, that weird chin hair that I get every now and then that is deemed to be facial hair actually now means that I have the fattest, juiciest schlong on this side of the Mississippi. So glad she could tell me something about my body that I did not know about. Now we do have one big final part that I really want to get into. However, I figured we could do a quick little lightning round of some of the other tweets that Oli London has made. Partially because they show Oli's grift, and partially because they're just fucking hilarious. And let's be honest, I deserve a little treat after making that whole fucking timeline. Hey, it takes more than Photoshop filters and a pair of badly placed fake breasts to be a woman. Instagram versus reality. Oli, my boy, I highly suggest that you of all people should probably not talk about other people using filters. Something about throwing stones from glass houses seems to come to mind here. Let's just say that if you look like the annoying Oblivion NPC, you should watch your mouth.
Yes! Oh, great and mighty grand champion?
If I can change the exposure on one of your pictures or your videos and it looks like it belongs in the Mandela catalog as a new alternate, I sincerely think you should pipe down about looks. And to put it nicely, of course. Judging by how that beauty and smoothing filter on TikTok has been used and abused by you, you are truly not one to talk about filters. But I mean, Instagram versus reality, am I right? Children's toy company Build-A-Bear under fire for releasing a RuPaul drag queen teddy bear targeting children. The release comes amid recent outrage towards the drag community for pushing sexually explicit shows and ideologies onto kids. Oh dear fucking god, here we go. First of all, this bear is only available on the Build-A-Bear After Dark part of the Bear Cave site, which is intended for shoppers 18 and older, and you have to confirm if you want to proceed with going onto the site. It's almost like despite being a Build-A-Bear product, it's separated from the main site and you can't go onto it without getting this nice little warning. Which, if we're being honest for a second, the majority of products on the After Dark site are no different than shirts they've probably seen suburban soccer moms wear for funsies like every Sunday. And lastly, I am sure that Oli London has always had this stance on drag queens, that he has always hated drag, and that he, wait, no, what? Oops, sorry, I never responded to this message, fan. Glad you're such a supporter of drag and have been for such a long time, though. Yeah, it looks like Oli was actually a fan of some queens back in 2020, and I doubt that that changed due to the fact that they never responded to his message. Something about selling a book, trying to reach a target audience, and all that, you know? Mob of trans activists holding signs calling women's rights speaker a fascist and a sign Nazis not welcome welcome at a Let Women Speak rally in Hyde Park, London today. The trans activists, many of them men pretending to be women, violently assaulted a woman during the event. No offense intended, Ollie, but how do you know for a fact that the activists that were there, and the one that you have pictured, are men pretending to be women? And how do you know the many part of that as well? Because for someone who stated that they'd support adult trans people in their debate with H3H3, you've yet to do that considering any adult that you talk about, from random activists to literal representatives, you misgender them, never show them any support, and always assume that they're pretending. And I'm gonna be honest, from my first glance at this protester, I genuinely thought that they were just like a cis woman. They look like a woman to me, and they look like they could just be there to support the protest. More than anything, this just shows to me that Oli London is probably projecting, considering the fact that he has done this with, like I said, any person that is trans with a smidgen of attention. Also, the violent assault Ollie is talking about is a woman getting knocked over after grabbing a big protest sign. Side note that's kind of related to this, I really do love the protect women's stance that Ollie has taken recently. Totally doesn't fall flat when you realize that the company publishing his book has a history of alleged workplace sexual harassment, one incident involving management who was the victim's point of contact for situations such as the one this point of contact put her through, and an author of theirs that made racist and sexual remarks to employees in which controller Ann Cho told them to step up and say something, and when the employees asked who their HR contact was, she simply told them, "You are adults." Couldn't have handled that any better, clearly. So take all that as you will, because Ollie, if you were really trying to protect the women's, you wouldn't be working with people who hurt the women's. If you hadn't guessed it yet, transitioning children is all about money. Finally, something besides pictures without context. Now we have a graph with no context, which, because it's a graph, I'm sure it's scientific and smart and that Ollie totally isn't bullshitting on what he's saying. I'm sure that if we look into Grandview Research's graph and look at all the information that's also included underneath it, it will say exactly what Oli London just said. Oh? What's this? Further information attached to the graph that's only mention of children is through the brief mention of around 1.4 and 1.3% of young people aged 13 to 17 and 18 to 24 being trans? Nowhere mentioning that children are transitioning at high rates or anything, just saying a percentage of them that are trans? Wow. It's almost like this graph is just a graph on the cost of sexual reassignment surgery going up and not involving children at all, you little liar. And I can't let Ollie have all the fun here being a little liar and all that. So here's a graph of the cannabis pharmaceutical market and how it's increased even more than sex reassignment surgeries have. So with your logic, Ollie, and that logic being the bigger the graph, the more children impacted, this graph proves that the cannabis industry is targeting children and trying to make your kid smoke the weed. I too can spread misinformation for funsies. Biden administration proposal seeks to stop a school ban on transgender male students competing in girls' sports. Under the proposal, schools would be forbidden from outright bans on biological males competing in female sports in high school. 16 states currently have bans covering high school sports. Source: Associated Press. Well, in a turn of events, Ollie finally has a source for something he's decided to talk about. Bravo for that, Ollie. That is just growth right there, and the absolute bare minimum at that. However, we do need to talk about that picture though, because my god. Did you just decide to use like a random picture in this with like no idea what the context was? Because I fortunately know the context, and I don't think it's what you were aiming for. For those of you who don't know, this is Mac Beggs. He's a transgender wrestler who, due to Texas's policy determining sex for the purpose of sports by birth certificate, had to compete in the girls category when in high school due to that being the sex on his birth certificate. Mind you, this was despite his requests to go against male wrestlers. Using Mac Beggs as a gotcha point and just not even using the situation for what it was. A teenage boy who wanted to go against other teenage boys in wrestling but couldn't because of Texas. That is just actual bullshit, Ollie. What do you think is behind the huge leap in Gen Z identifying as LGBTQI+? Oh goody, more grass! Well, Ollie, I would personally argue that there is a jump in Gen Z because I'm apparently Gen Z. I didn't fucking know that, but okay then. Is that we feel more comfortable being fully out now than we did before. And according to the graph, that may be a generational commonality due to the fact that by 2022, every single generation has went up in that regard. There's also the factor of coming out becoming way easier the older that you get. For example, in my situation, I had an idea that I was bisexual when I was in middle school, but I didn't really come out of the closet until basically college, where I was very openly out to all of my friends and anybody who, asked me about it. I felt more comfortable being out when I was in college because I could literally just spend my time with people who accepted me, and I didn't have to spend my time with the people who didn't accept me. To break it down simply, when thing become more accepted, the rise in thing might occur. Now finally, the last big thing that I want to talk about is that if you thought that the one tweet about Dylan Mulvaney that Oli London made was the only tweet he has about him, oh no. Oli has an incredibly weird obsession with Dylan Mulvaney because the sheer number of tweets this dude has made about Dylan is like actual levels of obsession that I couldn't even fathom ever reaching. Dylan has a fully furnished, utilities included, rent-free space in Oli's damaged cranium with how much he tweets about her. But I specifically wanted to talk about how many times that Oli London has tried to prove that Dylan is faking being trans, which, Oli, are you sure you want to talk here? I'll humor you really quick, Oli. Let's just do a really quick rundown of everything that Dylan has done for their transition so far. Dylan started transitioning in March of 2021, documenting her use of hormone replacement therapy as well as her facial feminization surgery on TikTok through her Days of Girlhood series. So not only has Dylan gotten the exact same surgeries as you, Oli, she also is taking hormones and has been on them for a hot minute. What I'm getting at here is that if Dylan is faking despite doing a big thing you openly didn't do during your transition just because she was on TV and acted prior to transitioning, then what does that make you? The person who has been on Hooked on the Look how many times, botched, which is rather fitting, and Dr. Phil. Because if we're also judging by past experience on TV and getting coverage, like you are with Dylan, Oli, I can assure you that yours is worse than Dylan's, considering you also used anything and everything possible to keep relevant, from BTS and other K-pop idols to literal social justice movements. Basically, Oli, what I'm saying is that if I am to take anything that you say seriously about Dylan Mulvaney, that applies tenfold to you. Because let's face it, you were a clout goblin from the beginning that really didn't do anything different than you normally would, and you're now targeting people who have done more than you have, and have also been successful despite it. You've just now decided to shift ways on how you're gonna get attention, all things considered now. Speaking of attention, Oli's supporters, despite everything consistently being shown to them, have pretty much convinced themselves that Oli's actually honest, because he's not doing all that now. That really doesn't matter because it has nothing to do with the message that Oli London is giving the viewers. Take your hater juice to some other fountain. London is protecting children, and that's all that matters. To the trolls, his past with trying to be Korean and realizing the madness of it is not too different from a former heroin addict trying to warn society the dangers of drugs. He's precisely the kind of person who should be talking about this. First of all, comparing a person who is very clearly addicted to cosmetic surgery and attention on the internet to a heroin addict, that's a choice. Secondly, thinking that Oli London is going to have anything interesting to say in his book regarding the things he apparently aims to tackle is laughable, considering he is just a little micro-influencer who got surgery. And I'm not gonna lie, as brain dead as these people are for literally ignoring people trying to point out how much of a grifter Oli London is, and now he's just telling them what they want to hear so they'll financially support him, I do kind of feel bad for them. I feel bad that they're so in need of someone to support their stance that they'll support a very clear grifter financially by buying what I can only assume is going to be a half-baked book about topics they don't really have the qualifications to talk about given their circumstance and also education. It is just going to be a book reaffirming the stance because that's all Oli can do in order to appease them and keep getting their money. Money has been his goal. There is a reason he is shelling out cameos on TikTok. But at the end of the day, you reap what you sow. So if you do decide that you want to believe Oli London despite everything, which mind you, I didn't even cover certain batch of things like him marrying somebody that looks like Jimin as well as a cardboard cutout of Jimin as well. Yes, those are things that happened. I wonder why he ever did it. If you believe that Oli London has made this very serious shift into politics and isn't just doing this for money, press, and clout, then feel free to do so. I'm just asking you to question if this person who has hopped from one thing to the next regarding what could get him attention is someone you can truly believe changed their mind on something this serious and isn't just grifting. Now, as far as the tweet from the beginning goes, Dollar Store Jimin, Felix, whoever he decides to be this week. He has a book coming out in August that basically details him detransitioning from K-pop star to grifter. So as much as I would love to talk about that, we do have to wait for it to come out to discuss truly how bad it is. Because it's promising to be all scientific and shit, and I don't think you can really have quite a scientific book cover a topic as vast as gender identity, transitioning, detransitioning, and even, apparently, law and everything else it claims to cover with just under 300 pages. I studied history and political science, and all of my books were like at least 800 pages, so I figured that STEM would have bigger books, but maybe fucking not. Needless to say, we're in for something. But until that book comes out, and until Oli London decides that this little grift is in pain well enough so he moves into another era, I just wanted to say thank you all for watching this video and losing brain cells with me. I appreciate it greatly, and I hope that you at least have some brain cells left over, because I surely do not. And until the next video, try not to recreate the your favorite Martian stereotype song through certain cosmetic surgeries, and I will see you guys later. Bye!